It is the first update to our 1 to 24 Championship pre-season predictions. We do this every international break. Have a look at what we said, what has happened, and are we going to stick or twist with those pre-season predictions? Hold the course, stay strong, or be influenced by the first 4 games. And very pertinently in this international break, the closing of the transfer window. I am going to have my say. And how about this? I'm going to try not to be sarky or snarky or defensive or angry. So get in the comments, and you don't have to be any of those things to give your opinion on the internet. But we do want to hear from you. And let's just give you a little bit of a taste of who might be changing my mind, because there has been some pleasant surprises so far. And you can see, look, Oxford and Blackburn I had in the bottom 3 are way higher so far, only 4 games in. Darby, 2, we had them just surviving there, up in the top half as things stand. And Watford and Sunderland, by God, are way up in the top 3 of the table. Have had a great start. Is that going to influence me to push them up from my pre-season predictions? And where there's pleasant surprises, there's unpleasant surprises. Look at that. Luton and Coventry I had in the top 4, way lower at the moment after 4 games. Hull and Sheffield Wednesday also had them in the top 10. They are not there yet. Shall we get into this? And we are going to start with the ones that I'm going to stay put on. I'm actually just going to stick with what I said in pre-season. We will hold fire on the top 6, by the way. So here are the non-top 6 sides that I'm all right with what I said at the beginning of the season. Have a look there, 21st place, Darby, really good at home, not really good away from home. I've got them just having enough to survive. I'm kind of cool with that after 4 games, and we can look at that later down the line. Swansea, hard to get a read on. I'm not necessarily seeing anything that pushes them into the top half or comfortable mid-table. So I've got them kind of the top of the bottom 6, essentially. Stoke, we always have a laugh about Stoke. I'm terrified of ever getting excited about Stoke. So what's the normal home? About 16th or something, isn't it? I've got them in 14th. I'm going to leave Stoke right there and not touch them with a barge pole. And QPR, I mean, they've only just got their first win. Everybody had high hopes. Remember, there was 2 teams last season that were terrible for the first half and really good for the second half. QPR were one of them. I'm going to hold firm in 11th spot for QPR and assume that what I said at the start of the season or in pre-season is still fairly accurate. We will see. Let me know your thoughts on any of those 4. Let's have a look at some climbers. People who have changed my mind already, and I've pushed them up in my 1 to 24s. And the bottom half teams, I think I've got 4 of them, I've got climbing, are Oxford. Now, keep cool, Oxford fans, because you're way higher than 22nd. I had Oxford bottom of the league, and it's very important that I don't go crazy here and just move teams 8-10 places based on 4 games. So what I've done is just bumped Oxford up a couple of places. And remember, a football season lasts for 9 months, Oxford fans. If it's up every international break, then you will be in the middle of the table by the end of the season. And I've liked what I've seen so far from Des Buckingham and Oxford. It looks like they know what their plan is. And maybe, as we go on, we're not going to be predicting relegation for Oxford, but I just bumped them up to begin with. I hope you understand how this works, okay? And the same with Blackburn, who've had an absolutely fantastic start, haven't they? I had Blackburn going down. I thought it'd be complete chaos at Ewood Park, but it hasn't been at all, has it? John Eustace is doing fantastic. And even though they've sold the Championship top scorer from last season, they seem to have recruited well and have just had a really nice start. So I've gone quite heavy on Blackburn there. I've bumped them up 6 into 17th. And look, if they perform exactly the same way between now and the next international break, then they're going to be going up again. Watford's a difficult one. Watford feels like possibly the most maybe unrealistic hot start in the Championship, doesn't it? They won their first 3 games and they're way up riding high in the table. I have had the first defeat now. So look, I had Oxford 18th. I've bumped them up 2 places. I am on, let me be completely honest, Watford fans, I am expecting a regression to the mean. I'll be very happy for you if there isn't one. So I'm just going to be a bit careful. I still got them 16th, but yeah, certainly great start by Tom Cleverley. Millwall, I'm not changing massively. I've bumped them up 1 place. I think since Tanganga came in into the defence and, you know, the end of the window looked a little bit positive, even if Zian Fleming went out. It looks like they're building towards their new team. So not entirely sure I see Millwall getting into the top half, but I have bumped them up 1 because they do look like they can win games, basically. And we didn't know whether last season's kind of great escape flurry would be able to be kind of replicated this season. So we'll hold fire a little bit on Millwall. And let's look at the top half climbers, where I have bumped Norwich up 3 positions into 9th position. I thought the transfer window could have been worse for Norwich. Obviously, Rowe out, Sarah out. But look, Sargent is still there. Nunes is still there. And I like some of the people that have come in, Forson particularly. And it's very clear what Norwich are doing in terms of making their team young and really going with the Johannes Hoff-Thorup style of play. And when Norwich have a plan in the Championship, it normally works. So I've bumped them up 3. And here's the one, ladies and gentlemen, Sunderland, the giant surprise for a lot of people. They've won every single game. They've been absolutely brilliant. I had them way on down in 15th place. They're obviously currently 1st. So I think what I've tried to do here is acknowledge Sunderland's brilliant start, but still keep a little bit calm that it's only 4 games and put them just outside the playoffs. But, you know, I could be sat here with them in the playoffs if anything like what they've done so far sustains, and they have been the big surprise. So tip of the cap to Reggie Lebris, and Sunderland are flying, and I've had to bump them way, way up from my initial 15th. We'll see where we are in the next international break. Shall we look at some fallers I've got in the bottom half? And there's quite a few of them. Plymouth, I tried my best to be super positive about Plymouth. I had them surviving in 20th. Right now, and it could change, I don't see Plymouth being much better than any of the teams in the relegation zone. This is not a Wayne Rooney conversation, by the way. Plymouth struggled for much of the second half of last season. And, you know, until we see something tangible, which we couldn't have, to be fair, yet, because we've only had 4 games. I'm talking about, can they knock out a point per game or more over 6 or 7 games and start racking regularly points on to the total? But not seeing it yet. I don't want everyone to be right about Wayne Rooney, but, you know, it's a tricky job. Pompey, I feel a little bit unfair about doing this. I already had them going down. I've knocked them down 1 place. They're yet to win a game, but of course they've had a really difficult start. And I think if you're an angry Portsmouth fan reaching to comment on your phone, just hold on 1 second. In fact, if you're an angry football fan of any description wanting to comment on your phone, just let it breathe. Let it breathe for 30 seconds before you type out that angry message to this poor YouTuber here. But you have to factor in other teams. And Portsmouth and Plymouth dropping down is more a reflection of Oxford, I think, who have kind of gone, oh, they seem to be firing and maybe others aren't yet. So maybe if Portsmouth and Plymouth are kind of, well, Plymouth slightly less than I thought of them and Portsmouth are the same, but Oxford are more, then Portsmouth moved down by proxy of not of what they've done, but of what another team have done. So there's a little bit of that. So that's my bottom 3 as it stands: Plymouth, Portsmouth, and Oxford. Cardiff, I've dropped down 3 places. I'm a bit conflicted about this because I happen to think if they keep Errol Ballou, things will kind of right themselves and they'll move up the table. But Mr. Tan could obviously sack the manager at some point, and I think they could go into a similar spiral if he does do that they've been in previous years, and, you know, be in a relegation fight and survive in 20th where they've got them. So we'll see what the ownership does there. Preston, I've dropped down 5 actually, and this is no reflection on Paul Heckingbottom, the new manager. He's only been in 2 games there, but my pre-season thoughts on Preston are now completely irrelevant because I said they always finish in the middle and Ryan Lowe is a kind of safe pair of hands to do that as Preston manager. He's gone. He's not the manager anymore. So I think Preston are now got to adjust to Heckingbottom and have the new start there and hopefully they get some kind of bounce. But I'll just drop them into the, the sort of bottom 7 area and we'll see where they go from there. Hull, I could have been a bit stiffer with that. I've got to be honest, Hull fans. I'm not massively impressed with what I've seen so far. And I'm hearing Tim Volter after games saying, oh, it's not really happening. They're not really doing what I'm asking yet. And, you know, the transfer window was a bit tumultuous for Hull. So obviously I had them in 8th. I've dropped them actually into the bottom half. We could boost them back up. It could be a good season for Hull. I don't know. There's just not really any evidence of that yet. So I dropped them into the bottom half. Shall we give you then, you can see 3 spots there in the top half for top half fallers. Has anyone fallen out of the playoff positions? Yes. First, let's just deal with Sheffield Wednesday. I was super hyped about Sheffield Wednesday and even more hyped after they won 4-0 on the first game. They've been pretty terrible since then and lost the next 3. We always seem to have QPR and Sheffield Wednesday bracketed since Roll and Cifuentes came in there. So I did have Sheffield Wednesday here and QPR here. I've acknowledged the bad run that Wednesday have had that QPR kind of haven't and just put Wednesday below QPR. We're just going to bracket them together forever, aren't we? Maybe that's the right thing to do. Maybe that's the wrong thing to do. Bristol City was my kind of gamble. A lot of people had them way lower than I had them in 7th. Not necessarily seen what I need to back up my pre-season thoughts there. So I've hedged my bets a little bit on Bristol City, dropped them down 3 places in to 10th. But Luton, that's the one, isn't it? Where I think they're 20 places out from where I had them in pre-season. Yes, it's only been 4 games. We get it. But I'm acknowledging Luton's bad start, that it might be a bit trickier than I imagined for them just to, you know, on paper, Luton always recruit well, always punch their weight. Got the year 1 parachute money, did pretty well in the Premier League, best of the 3 teams that have come down last season. But I'm acknowledging their bad start by taking them out of the playoffs for now and putting them into 8th place. And, you know, you can't at the moment really justify, for example, having Luton above Sunderland in your predictions, given, you know, what you said before the season and what's happened so far. So that leaves us with our top 6. Let's have a look at the playoff positions as I've got them. And there they are. I've dropped Middlesbrough down 1 spot. I'm still fairly high on Middlesbrough, actually. They're doing that thing of making loads and loads of chances and having massively high XG and shot count and not necessarily winning the games. But I think that'll come fairly good at some point. But again, same thing I said about Pompey at the bottom. Borough going down a place is more an acknowledgement of West Brom going up 4 places, where at the start of the season I thought, oh, Carlos Corberán, he can't keep pulling rabbits out of hats and having West Brom in the playoff positions and challenging. Yes, he can, on the basis of what I've seen so far. Sam Parkin and I on the Championship Check-In podcast had a chat about, is he currently the best performing manager, you know, with that tenure over the years now at Huddersfield and getting West Brom in playoffs last season as well. He's just a safe pair of hands, isn't he? So I've bumped West Brom up quite a bit, which knocks, obviously, that's acknowledging Luton coming out, Borough down 1 place. Coventry, I'm going to be stubborn here. I am keeping Coventry in 4th. They always have a slow start. I don't know why. I was talking to Matt SB about this on the Premier League check-in podcast, and he can't put his finger on it, and it's very irritating for the Coventry fans. But I still maintain that with Mark Robins, with the trend up that Coventry have had over years now and the kind of sort of winning habit in the club and the squad and the spend they've been able to do, you know, maybe outside the parachute teams, Coventry have powered themselves up now with good sales and good recruitment. So even though they're not anywhere near there after 4 games, I'm leaving Coventry in 4th. And I was a bit unsure about Sheffield United at the start of the season. Obviously, I've got them in 6th place to start the season. I've bumped them up 3 to acknowledge the fact that Chris Wilder looks a bit more like his old self, I've got to say. He looks a bit, Chris Wilder, aggressive front foot bloke. And some of that had kind of drifted away since the halcyon days of 2019 and 2020 for Wilder at Sheffield United. They've mitigated what looked like it was going to be a pretty terrifying transfer window pretty well. There's still some cheat codes in there. I'm talking about Hama and Ahmed Odzic, who are sort of acknowledged as being really high-end championship players. So that is making me think that even with that -2 to start the season points deduction, I'm going to have Sheffield United as the best of the rest who are not in the top 2. And we'll see if they can keep their sort of first 11 fit, whether that can push into a real changeable automatic challenge, which means I've got the same 2 teams as I had at the start of the season in the top 2. Have I got them in the same order? Yes, I have. So I'm going to be a bit stubborn about 3 of my top 4 here. Burnley, the first 2 games, they looked electric, didn't they? What did they bang on? Like +8 goal difference, or scored 9 goals? Yeah, +8 goal difference and 2 wins. Little bit of a tail off in the next 2, but I'm still seeing what looks like a powerful championship entity there, managed by a manager who's Marmite, Scott Parker, but gets the job done in the championship, whether you like the football or not. And they've just got a really, really big, maybe bloated, some would say, but squad of, players who are capable at this level. Leeds, I'm going to keep them top. There was a bit of a meltdown, wasn't there, after the game against Borough in the EFL Cup. But I think after Somerville, Rutter, Gray, Kamara as well went out, I think perfectly fill the boots of players of that quality. But, Solomon is already into the team. What's the other lad called? Schmidt. And Aronson is contributing as well. Sorry, there's other signings that I'm forgetting. But my overall picture of covering Leeds in the transfer window is they've done a pretty good job of replacing the outgoings. And Ramazani, is that right? There you go. Sorry. I got to think about 24 clubs. You only ever think about one. So I got there in the end. But I'm going to keep Leeds top. Year 2 parachute team. Manager who's done it before. Big club. Powerful squad. Seem to have recruited as well as they can. I see no reason to welch on my commitment to saying that Leeds would win the championship. There you go. Take a good look at it. That is the updated 1 to 24. It's a game of stick or twist. You can play along in the comments. And I'm trying my hardest. I know I'm never going to change human nature. But honestly, guys, world's smallest violin, it is exhausting opening my phone and people are unable to, express their opinion about their football team in the comments without getting angry, getting aggressive, being sarcastic, taking shots at me. Chill, guys. Let's just have a nice chat on the internet about your team. It can be fun. I promise. Just take accountability for what you say in the comments. We can't change the world, but as the great Michael Jackson said, start with the man in the mirror. So get involved in the comments, but please look after us YouTubers. It is draining on our kind of mental health and sanity, constantly being bombarded with sarky, angry, defensive, snarky, aggressive comments. There you go. It's a hobby horse of mine, but I'll try my best. Change the world one person at a time. Get watching on the channel. If you haven't already, we'll stick them up there somewhere. I will link right now the initial 1 to 24 video from the start of the season. And also, we checked in with what the bookies and the market are saying. If you want to compare that to what I've said, the never wrong bookmakers are constantly updating their thoughts on how the championship will finish. Right, go. Let it burn in the comments. And for God's sake, behave yourselves.